Thank you, Dr. Apurva. Thank you, Yossi, for inviting me for this talk today. I am Sagnik, and I am a VR fellow, a research and clinical fellow at Arvind Eye Hospital in my final year right now. I chose this topic because, like Dr. John said, that AI platforms are coming up a big way as predictive modalities. So we need to know which patient is going to respond to a treatment, which patient has a risk of development of disease. So I am going to look at this same aspect from a biotechnology, biochemistry point of view. So personalized medicine for ophthalmic diseases, use of omics related big data. We know that over 80% of proteins predicted by the human genome have been identified, and only 2% of the genome is coded, and rest all are non-coding DNA. And the omics platforms are basically genomics. So we have DNA, which involves the genomics. Then we have transcription into mRNA, which is transcriptomics, and proteins, expression of proteins, which is called proteomics. And there's something called epigenetics, which controls the transcription of DNA into mRNA. Now, coming into what is personalized medicine, Professor Lee Hood at Institute of Systems Biology in Seattle had defined personalized medicine as predictive, preventive, personalized, and participatory. So P4 medicine. It is a medicine, type of medicine in which departments of medicine, chemistry, biochemistry, and other technological departments like bioinformatics, manufacturing, and computing come together and utilize multiple skills and technologies to help patient care. And aims of personalized medicine are to tailor the treatment to the individual characteristics of the patient rather than the current approach of stratifying patients into treatment groups based on how the patient's phenotype is. And personalized medicine will also address both health and disease. So we have something called as personalized health and personalized medicine, which deals with diseases and treatment. So this is basically a diagram which shows how traditional medicine treats. So we have like males, females, age group wise, we deal with very broadly. But in personalized medicine, we will deal with specific age groups, specific DNA mutations, phenotypes, specific race. So suppose we have drug A, B, and C, and we do a diagnostic test or a prognostic test, which tells us that a certain percentage of population is responder to drug A, and another certain percentage of population is non-responder. So we choose our drug A, B, and C based on whether the patient will respond or whether the patient can have severe side effects also. The final vision of personalized medicine is if a patient has a diagnostic test positive and is likely to benefit, then we give the treatment to that patient. Otherwise, we don't. We titrate a therapy which will be useful for that particular patient. And we know that response to drugs is affected by each component in the omics family. Like certain genotypes might be resistant to certain drugs, or they may have side effects. So personalized medicine has been extensively used in cases of cancers like melanoma, lung cancer, and colon cancer. So we already know that estrogen receptor status, HER2/neu status, BRCA gene, all these positive. If this particular gene comes positive, then the patients receive some chemotherapy which cannot be given otherwise. Where does proteomics come into this picture? So proteomics is basically, as I said, there is a study of all the proteins. Proteomics, so proteins can be detected by sensitive assays, nanoproteomics, and it can be, so we can study proteome expression along with the genotype of the patient. We can develop them into biomarkers or diagnostic therapeutic tests, and finally we can have something called as a personalized medicine. You know that genome can be studied using the Sanger sequencing methods. Proteome can be studied with mass spectrometry, Western blotting, and ELISA. And finally, the phenotype is the clinical disease manifestation of a patient. So today we are going to talk about these three methods: mass spectrometry, Western blotting, and ELISA. Here is a representative diagram of a lung cancer patient. So we do genotyping for the patient, genotyping and proteome matching. So after we analyze proteome, we compare with different kinds of lung cancers in the patient, and then finally we study protein-protein interaction databases, and we personalize the treatment strategy for the patients. Here is another example of a rare disease. It's a neovascular inflammatory vitreoretinopathy, which has 5 stages. So here you can see a heat map. Heat map is basically interaction network of different proteins in different samples. So as you can see that as we go from control to stage 1, stage 2, these color maps are changing. That means these are the proteins which are differently expressed in different stages. So the author studied VEGF levels according to stages, and they found that in the last stage, VEGF levels are maximally raised. So they gave anti-VEGF to the patients, and they found that after anti-VEGF, the inflammation status of the patients reduced. Again, they found the patient of the last stage. So the patient had exudative retinal detachment with traction membranes. They found that IL-6 levels were extremely high in the last stage. You can see from this ELISA picture also. So along with retinal detachment surgery, they gave IL-6, anti-IL-6 injections to the patient. Patient responded well. So this is something called as a drug repositioning. So we already know the indications, the commonly known indications of drugs. Repositioning means we are selecting drugs for an indication which is not yet known. So usage of already approved drugs for undescribed indications. And this can be easily done by taking liquid biopsies from patients like vitreous, aqueous humor, and finally blood and urine samples if we can trace those same protein expression patterns in the blood. Genetic testing may have limits because genotyping only estimates the disease acquiring risk. However, proteomic profiling of liquid biopsies identifies the real-time effectors of expressed genes. So we can actually understand whether the patient will respond or not respond to the drug based on the expression profile. Now, my work at Arvind was basically involving vitreous from patients. So we found that found 552 unique proteins which have not been described till now. This was on donor eyes. Now, why did I choose vitreous? Because vitreous is an immunologically isolated body fluid. It is formed at the embryonic stage and changes very little in basic composition. So any disease which is happening in the retina will definitely get expressed in the vitreous, because since vitreous is an isolated cavity. So candidate disease for today is diabetic retinopathy. We all know that diabetic retinopathy, different kinds of pathogenetic pathways have been described, like the PKC activation pathway, hexosaminidase pathway, age-range pathway. And finally, it leads to a breakdown of BRB, which has all the pathogenic markers like basement membrane thickening, pericyte loss, inflammation. So this is my lab, and this is a mass spec machine in which we will study the proteome expression of patients. Coming to the analysis, so I analyzed control vitreous, like normal macular hole vitreous, which is a non-inflammatory control, and PDR vitreous as disease state. So the first picture, the A labeled picture, is a principal component analysis. Principal component analysis separates the proteome datasets into different groups. As you can see that the PDR samples, the ones in red, and the MAC hole samples have separated. Beside that, we have a heat map. So the first two columns has MAC hole samples, the control samples, and the next two columns has PDR. So you can see that the proteome expression profile of the two diseases is completely different. And we can also do a network analysis in which different kinds of protein interactions are enriched. Some statistical analysis is performed which can tell us which functions in the proteome are high. Suppose we have a proteases are raised, or inflammatory pathways are raised, or complement activation pathways raised. So we can understand all those things also from proteome analysis. This is a pathway analysis, again, which tells us which pathways are hyper expressed or which pathways are down regulated in this particular proteome. So what we found that PDR proteome has an increased function of protease inhibition, inflammation, WNT signaling, coagulation fibrinolysis, and reduced function of anti-angiogenesis. So and angiogenesis is increased. Then neuroinflammation inhibition, antioxidant activity, etc. So I will give you a situation in the year 2050. Suppose two patients aged 50 years, and each of them get diagnosed with mild NPDR in both eyes. And we sample their blood and we test it for the entire proteome mapping. And the report I'll show you, we have to understand how we can predict each patient's PDR risk status. So you see that proteome from non-diabetic patients and non-retinopathy diabetic patients are on the left side of the diagram, the principal component analysis. On the right side, we have VTDR. So patient 1's proteome matches with no diabetes and non-retinopathy diabetes. So this patient is at a lower risk of progression. Whereas patient 2, although he has mild NPDR today, his proteome dataset is enriching with the PDR proteome dataset. So we can say that patient 2 is going to be at a higher risk of developing PDR in the near future. So we treat the patient 2 accordingly. And right now, mild NPDR and moderate NPDR has no treatment per se other than diabetic control and systemic control. However, in the future, we might have newer drug molecules which can treat moderate NPDR, for example. So then if we can detect those patients who are at a higher risk of developing PDR, then we can treat those patients early. This was an abstract which we got, which got accepted in ARVO last year. So we identified one protein, retinol binding protein 3, which is down-regulated in PDR samples. It was consistently coming up. So we chose this protein to study in other samples.
You
So
have
RBP3 is expressed in photoreceptors. And so basically, we want to try and detect if RBP3 can be a prognostic biomarker for diabetic retinopathy.
Doctor, I appreciate we are out of time.
Yeah, I'll just round up. So as you can see that PDR samples have a low expression of RBP3. And this is a p-value is also significant. PDR samples have low RBP3. So RBP3 is basically a prognostic marker. So what are the essential future goals? We can develop biomarkers for diseases for early risk identification or candidates for treatment, associate with artificial intelligence platforms to improve prediction ability, find prognostic markers for diseases, search for newer targets for drug development, and drug repurposing or repositioning can also be done. However, drawbacks for this method is we'll generate huge amounts of data, and we need servers, either solid servers or cloud state servers, with ample amounts of data saving capacity, and we need heavy computing power for the same. And we need a very strong clinical.
Doctor, can I suggest you please wrap it up?
yeah.
Yeah.